Weird crime facts. D.B. Cooper's successful plane hijacking in 1971 was followed by dozens of copycats. One such copycat was Vietnam War veteran and paratrooper Rob Dolan Heady. He successfully extorted $200,000 and jumped out of the plane near Washoe Lake, Nevada. He would have gotten away with it, but police were able to find his car parked near the lake. What gave it away was a bumper sticker of the United States Parachute Association. In 2002, 3 Catholic nuns from Tennessee managed to break into a United States nuclear missile launch facility. As an anti-war protest, they vandalized the entire facility and drew crosses on the silo with their own blood. Nuclear weapons experts called it the biggest security breach in the history of the nation's atomic complex. Forgotten catastrophes. The Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 shook Japan with so much intensity that it caused the formation of a deadly phenomenon known as a fire tornado. Horrified witnesses could do nothing to save themselves since it got so hot that their shoes melted to the pavement. The fire soon ripped through the center of Tokyo, incinerating 40,000 people in about 3 minutes. The Burnden Park disaster was a human crush that occurred in 1946 at the Burnden Park football stadium in England. Overcrowding led to the deaths of 33 people and injuries to hundreds more. The dead bodies were then left covered on the sidelines and the game was restarted about 30 minutes later. Afterwards, many players said they were sickened by the fact that the game was allowed to continue. Weird space facts. In the 1880s, the director of the Harvard Observatory was frustrated with his staff and would say, quote, "My Scottish maid could do better." So to jokingly prove a point, he hired his Scottish maid. Williamina Fleming proceeded to lead a team for decades, classified tens of thousands of stars, and discovered the Horsehead Nebula. Astronauts lose about 1% of their bone mass each month, most of which is excreted through their urine. So essentially, astronauts slowly pee their skeletons out. Scientists believe there's a 9th planet in our solar system that's about 10 times larger than Earth. They haven't been able to locate it yet, but they know it's there due to its gravitational effects on other objects. These are some of the craziest war tactics that actually worked. Hannibal of Carthage was famous for intimidating his Roman enemies through the use of war elephants. But the Romans eventually learned that elephants are afraid of squealing pigs. So they would lather pigs in tar and set them on fire, sending the enemy elephants fleeing in horror. A Chinese general with only 100 men once had to defend a town against 150,000 troops. So he told his men to hide, left the gates open, and sat on the walls playing a lute. Certain that it was a trap, the opposing general ordered a full retreat. One of the reasons why the plague was spread to Europe was because the Mongols literally sent it there. When they were trying to conquer the city of Kaffa, they would catapult infected bodies over the city walls. This was also one of the first historical accounts of biological warfare. Weird movie facts. Before filming Interstellar, Christopher Nolan planted 500 acres of corn just for the movie because he didn't want to use CGI. After filming, he sold all the corn and made back profit for the budget. In The Matrix, which came out in 1999, Neo's passport expires on September 11th, 2001. Real skeletons were used in the filming of Poltergeist because it was cheaper than making prop ones. The actress wasn't told they were real until after the shooting finished. This was the original design of Voldemort, which many find far more terrifying than what they went with. The Italian version of Moana is called Oceania because there was already a famous porn star named Moana in Italy. In one of the scenes of The Iron Giant, you can see a moving star near the moon. This is because the movie is set in 1957, the same year that the first satellite Sputnik was launched into orbit. Morbid facts that you didn't know about the Titanic. On the same day that the ship sank, there was a lifeboat training drill scheduled that was canceled last minute by the captain. If the drill took place, it's estimated that hundreds more lives would have been saved. But instead, the process was complete chaos and many boats left when they weren't even at full or even half capacity. A boy named Frank Goldsmith Jr. survived the sinking, then moved into a home near Tiger Stadium in Detroit. But he never took his boys to a ball game because the cheers of the crowd reminded him of the screaming of the passengers on the Titanic. Many survivors, however, claim that hearing all the screams wasn't even the worst part. The only thing creepier was the fact that all the screaming stopped around the same moment and was followed by complete silence. Weird crime facts. In 2017, a woman named Glenna Durham killed her husband after shooting him 5 times. Soon afterwards, the couple's pet African gray parrot started repeating the words, "Don't effing shoot." It was assumed that these were the husband's last words, and the woman was eventually found guilty of first-degree murder. Serial killer Dennis Rader, aka the BTK Killer, used to install security systems for homeowners. Many of his clients wanted the security systems to keep the BTK Killer from ever entering their homes, unaware that he was the one installing them. In 2015, a man broke into a ranch in Nova Scotia and quite literally made himself at home. He fed the cats and horses, did laundry, took a shower, and used the homeowner's toothbrush. He even wrote in their diary and was watching TV on the couch when they came home. Weird nature facts. While it looks like something from Star Wars, the Valais Blacknose is a species of domestic sheep found in Switzerland. They're known for their shaggy coats, spiral horns, and pitch black faces. A Russian helicopter discovered this strange giant crater in Siberian permafrost. Some scientists say it's a new type of sinkhole, but its true origins remain a mystery. There's a species of octopus that cares for her eggs for 53 months without eating, then dies. This is the longest brooding period of any known animal species. Farmers in Botswana have started painting faces on their cows' butts to prevent lions from sneaking up on them. The New Mexico whiptail is a species of lizard that is 100% female. Nicknamed the lesbian lizards, they still mate with each other to stimulate egg growth without transferring genetics. Weird history facts. In 1985, Professor of Oceanography Robert Ballard announced a mission to find the Titanic, but it was really a cover story for a classified mission to find lost nuclear submarines. But the team finished early, so they decided to spend the extra time searching for the Titanic and ended up actually finding it. After trick photography was developed in 1856, headless portraits became a trend during the Victorian era. In ancient Egypt, servants were smeared with honey to attract flies away from the pharaoh. During medieval times, it was common to have 2 sleeps per night. You would sleep for 4 to 5 hours, wake up for about 2 hours, then sleep for another 3 to 4. Scientists have suggested that we may have evolved this way to tend to the fire in order to keep us warm and safe. Creepy Ask Reddits, Part 1. Redditors who work at remote places, what creepy things have you noticed while at work? I used to work at a Boy Scout summer camp. Every week I had to take a big group of campers to a secluded spot for their wilderness survival badge. On this one night it was getting late, so I sent all the campers to their shelters and started cleaning up the fire. That's when we heard in the distance what sounded like church bells. We were all a little creeped out since there were no churches or towns within 20 miles of us. After the bells stopped, the singing started. It sounded like church choir music, but with a lot of people and a lot more enthusiastic. All of the campers were super creeped out, but I lied to them, telling them there was a church service going on at the camp. Eventually, at almost 1 a.m., the singing stopped. I found out a few days later that there had been a huge KKK rally only a few miles away that night, and that's what we had heard. Creepy Ask Reddits, Part 2. What is the creepiest thing you've seen in the woods or in remote areas? Back when I was a kid, some friends and I came across people in robes chanting around a campfire in the woods. We were staying at a friend's house for a birthday party and went for a late night walk. This was back in the late 80s during the Satanic Panic. Looking back now, I'm sure it was just some teenagers goofing off, but at the time it scared the living bejesus out of us. I'd been at football training with a few of my cousins when I was about 10 years old. We decided to take a walk before our parents picked us up, so we went along the canal towpath. My cousin looked down in the canal and saw a really nice jacket floating along, and being a weird scavenger person, decided to reach in and fish it out. Well, the jacket turned over, and so did the man wearing it. He also had no face left. Not gonna lie, that was rough. Creepy Ask Reddits, Part 3. What is the scariest story you know that is 100% real? I was working the evening shift at a gas station. A man comes in all disoriented, so I go to help him out. He has a gash on his head and doesn't know where he was. I couldn't see any crashes around, so I assumed he had fallen or something. Normally, we're supposed to stay behind the glass shielded register area whenever someone is in the store. I, being a nice human being, went to help while calling the police/EMS. They got there and checked him out and thought that his head may have been fractured. They took him to the ER and I went back to work. Cops stopped back on by for some coffee a few hours later. They told me the guy got hit by a baseball bat trying to break into a little girl's bedroom and was wanted for rape and murder in 2 other states. I never left the register area at night again. These are some morbid facts that you didn't know about the Columbine massacre. This Columbine class of '99 photo was taken just a few months before the shooting. In the top left corner, shooters Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold can be seen making shooting gestures at the camera while wearing sunglasses. This is a game of hangman that a group of students played while they were locked in their classroom during the shooting. While being at one mass shooting is horrifying and unlucky enough, Regina Road was at 2 of them. 8 years after surviving Columbine, she was a student at Virginia Tech when 32 people were killed. On the day of the shooting, 2 10-kilogram bombs were planted in the school cafeteria right before lunch. Luckily, the bombs failed to detonate, otherwise all 488 students in the cafeteria at the time could have died. These melted chairs were the result of Dylan Klebold trying to set off one of those bombs with a Molotov cocktail. Weird nature facts. These giant stick insects known as tree lobsters were thought to be wiped out by rats in 1920. But in 2001, 24 of them were found in a small bush on an island called Ball's Pyramid. No one knows how they got there, but they were the last known survivors of the species until scientists started breeding them. 44 years ago today was the first and only time that snow was recorded in Miami, Florida. Sea urchins sometimes cover themselves with rocks for protection, so if you give them tiny hats, they'll wear them. In the 1930s, a flute player had a pet lyrebird that mimicked his music. Eventually, he released the bird into the wild, but fragments of the flute player's music were passed down by generations of lyrebirds and are still present in their songs today. Weird space facts. Astronomer Clyde Tombaugh discovered Pluto in 1930 and investigated it throughout his whole life. He died in 1997 at the age of 90, less than a decade before the New Horizons launched to Pluto. His ashes were launched on the spacecraft to honor his final wish, and he was able to visit the planet that he discovered. The last time all humans were on Earth together was on November 2nd in the year 2000. At least one person has been on the International Space Station ever since. This photo taken from a million miles away shows an extremely rare view of the far side of the moon. Since the launch of Sputnik in 1957, humans have littered the space around us with thousands of satellites. In the future, this may make it dangerous to leave the planet, and we may become forever trapped in our own garbage. Weird history facts. Before the invention of ultrasound, parents often had no idea what they were getting. Accordingly, this photo from 1946 shows a man passing out with excitement after finding out that his wife just had triplets. These are what the marble steps look like in the Leaning Tower of Pisa after 500 years of people walking on them. A lot of old movie theaters had cry rooms where you could bring your children to if they were becoming too disruptive. This way you could still enjoy the movie without disrupting other moviegoers. In 1913, a 12-year-old black girl named Sarah Rector was given land unsuitable for farming. But it turned out to be rich with oil and she became a millionaire overnight. She was known as the richest colored girl in the world, and Oklahoma legislation made an effort to have her legally declared white. Weird nature facts. Archaeologists have discovered dwarf crocodiles living in remote caves in the African country of Gabon. After living in complete darkness, their skin has turned orange and they are nearly blind. These weird cave crocodiles may be in the process of evolving into an entirely new species. In the town of Churchill, Manitoba, it is deemed common courtesy to keep your car doors unlocked. This is so that townspeople can have a quick escape if they ever come across a wild polar bear. In 2007, a giant bowhead whale was caught off the coast of Alaska with an old harpoon point embedded in its neck. Further examination revealed that the fragment dated back to the year 1880, indicating that the whale had survived a human attack that took place over a century ago. This also proved to scientists that bowhead whales are the longest living mammals in the world. Weird war facts. One of the original 5 Japanese cities that the US planned on nuking was its former capital, Kyoto. The only reason it wasn't bombed was because US Secretary of War Henry Stimson spent his honeymoon there and called it a nice place. So instead of Kyoto, they chose Nagasaki. Roman Emperor Caligula once declared war on Neptune, god of the seas. His men ran at the ocean and stabbed the water for a short time before surrendering. World War II ace pilot Douglas Bader flew with no legs. This became a surprising advantage against G-force, making him less likely to pass out. A quiet American prisoner of war was nicknamed the Incredibly Stupid One by Vietnamese captors. But upon his return to the US, he provided the names of 200 other prisoners of war, which he had memorized to the tune of Old MacDonald Had a Farm. Ancient discoveries. Archaeologists in New Mexico have found the longest prehistoric human trail ever discovered. It's more than a mile long in an area that was full of predators during the Ice Age. The footprints belong to a young adult and a toddler, likely a mother and her child. She was in a hurry and sometimes carried the child on her back. This 9,000-year-old cave painting was discovered in Tassili Cave in Algeria. It is a depiction of a shaman during a psychedelic mushroom trip. Some things just never change. This 1,800-year-old carving of a pecker was found near Hadrian's Wall in England. In 1992, a man from Great Britain was using a metal detector to find a lost hammer on his farm. But instead, he stumbled upon one of the largest collections of ancient Roman coins in the world. The 1,500-year-old treasure consisted of nearly 15,000 coins. Weird movie facts. After filming Psycho, actress Janet Leigh was so terrified of showers that she only took baths for 35 straight years. On the extremely rare occasion that she did take a shower, she made sure that every door in the house was locked and left the shower curtain open. An Indian actor named Shyam risked his life to transform for a role. He went 9 straight days without sleep so that the tissues under his eyes would swell up. Robert De Niro's character famously played Russian roulette in the movie Deer Hunter. When filming the scene, De Niro suggested using a real bullet to raise the tension of the actors. The actor who played the xenomorphin alien was a 6'10" man from Nigeria. He was discovered by the casting team in a local pub, and it was the only time he appeared in a movie. Weird nature facts. Scientists who first discovered the platypus thought it was fake. They assumed that an egg-laying, duck-billed venomous mammal with the tail of a beaver had to be an elaborate hoax. Standing at 380 feet tall, Hyperion is the largest known living tree in the world. Located somewhere in California, its exact location is kept a secret to protect it from vandals. A Japanese zoo once tried to mate a pair of hyenas for 4 years before realizing that they were both males. This resilient tree had all of its soil washed away but still refused to die. These are some examples of animals that are bilateral gynandromorphs. It's a genetic mutation that causes one of their first cells to be male and the other to be female. The result is an extraordinary animal that's male on one side and female on the other. Weird history fact. People originally erased pencil mistakes using bread. That was until 1770 when Edward Nain accidentally picked up a piece of rubber instead of bread and found it to be very effective. This prompted him to sell rubber erasers, which were eventually developed into the ones we know today. Erasers exist to fix mistakes and were invented because of one. This is what the headquarters of Mussolini's Italian fascist party looked like in 1934. In the 1950s, atomic bomb tests were a big tourist attraction in Las Vegas. They advertised detonation times and the best viewing spots to see the bombs explode from 65 miles away. It's estimated that out of all the species that have ever lived on Earth, only a fraction of 1% have been fossilized. This means that more than 99% of the history of life will be forever unknown. Weird nature facts. In the 1930s, a couple of married scientists conducted an experiment in which a chimpanzee named Gua was raised alongside their infant son Donald. For 9 months, they were raised as brother and sister as the parents recorded their development. While Gua learned many of the human behaviors before Donald, the experiment was stopped abruptly because Donald started behaving more like a chimp. If you jangle your keys at a moth that has ears, it will do a backflip. This is an adaptation to the echolocation of bats, which is a high-pitched noise. The moth will drop out of the air and pretend that it's dead to avoid being eaten by a bat. The deep-water blobfish actually looks like a normal fish when it's in its natural habitat. It only looks ugly and bloated after undergoing extreme depressurization when fishermen try to reel it in. Weird crime facts. Alexander Litvinenko was a former Russian spy who solved his own murder case. He was poisoned with a cup of tea in a London hotel and was quickly hospitalized. Working with Scottish detectives as he lay dying, he managed to trace the lethal substance to a former comrade in the Russian Secret Service. Serial killer and cannibal Richard Chase only attacked victims who had their doors unlocked. He took locked doors as a sign that he wasn't welcome, but unlocked doors were an invitation to come inside. Troy Leon Gregg was a death row inmate in Georgia who escaped the night before his execution. But that same night, he ended up being killed in a bar fight. Donald Harvey was a nurse and serial killer who killed 37 of his patients with cyanide. He was only caught when one of his victims' coroners had the rare genetic ability to smell cyanide.